Divorce is one of the top 5 stressors in life. And just this changes in the day-to-day life of a family is profound. But if you add to that emotional turmoil, maybe high conflicts and financial struggles or even abuse, it can quickly become overwhelming. So what can we do to navigate separation, divorce, and even blending new families afterwards with grace and our dignity intact? Tina Huggins is my guest today. Let's hear what she has to say about that. Welcome, Tina, and thanks for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me.
Please tell us, what is it that you do and how did you come to do what you're doing?
Well, I'm a certified divorce coach. I'm certified in transition and recovery from divorce. I'm also a certified restorative family mediator and certified in conflictual co-parenting. I got involved in this. I've been coaching for about 30 years, and I had coached people through divorce, but just on the minor side. And then I met the man of my dreams. 2 years into his divorce. He'd been going through his divorce process for 2 years. And during that time, I ended up doing paper investigation for his attorney in the situation. And it was just long drawn out. To cut to a shorter story, that divorce lasted the longest in that county here in the United States of 7 years. He himself spent over $300,000 just in legal fees going through that divorce. And then 10 years after they had filed, they were still not done with the separation of finances and property and everything like that. So somewhere in the middle of all that, I went ahead and changed my focus from my coaching in the past to divorce coaching specifically, and have been getting trained and continue to get trained. Now I'm going to go backwards with a little bit of story. My father was almost murdered in his second marriage. He had been shot at several times. And then the last time that I picked him up from the hospital, he'd been driven over with a dually pickup truck.
Wow.
And being able to help my dad get out of that abuse and save his farm, he had a family farm, and being able to help him with all of that was very important to me, to be able to keep my father safe, obviously. And the abuse that men go through is so much more difficult for them to admit that they're in an abusive relationship, especially with a woman. And that I just felt needed to be addressed. And of course, we women need help to get out of those difficult situations, because divorcing somebody like these people is very, very difficult. So we need to have that type of support. I myself was also in an abusive situation, ended up with a broken hand, separated ribs, and a dislocated leg from different fights that I had been in before I left my marriage. So there's a lot that played into me being here today.
Wow, it sounds like you've been through the grinder and have a very lot of experience in this. So that's why you're so passionate about what you're doing.
Yes. And, you know, we go back through where I come from originally. I come in from law enforcement. I have helped women and children get out of abusive homes, myself literally being in the middle of the abuser and the woman and the children, as I would put them in my vehicle to leave the home.
Yeah.
I taught self-defense for battered women's shelters back in Southern Colorado. So I've been involved in this quite some time.
Sounds familiar. I've been in a number of precarious situations myself, trying to get abused people to safety. And in the heat of those arguments, it's a yeah, dangerous place to be, actually.
Very much
You
so.
need to know what you're doing. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, and yes, divorce, I wonder, in most cases are not uncontested, are not civilized, are not, well, in my experience, certainly most divorces have got so much conflict, so many issues. It's dragged out the example that you just mentioned of literally years and hundreds of thousands of South African rands, where I am as well, is common. It's certainly not out of the ordinary to wait years just to get a court date, never mind resolve the issue. And then there's a whole conversation that we can have about the people in the divorce industry that actually, abuse the situation for their own gain and really, really put people into very precarious financial positions as a result of litigation that's unnecessary.
Yes.
Yeah, divorce is a sore topic, but something that we need to talk about, that needs to be addressed because it's so common these days, eh?
Yes, definitely. Very common. And I believe especially since COVID, it's gotten worse.
Yes.
The
Mm.
fighting has gotten worse, and the amount of money spent on divorce has
Mm.
gotten higher and higher.
Mm. So where do you start when you get involved with helping someone? I'm sure they come to you in different stages of the process as well. What does it normally look like for you?
Well, I would prefer they come to me before they've even talked to an attorney, because that's where I
Wouldn't
can
that
save
be
them the most
great?
money. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It would be great for them, and it would be great for the whole situation in the
Yeah.
process.
Mm.
Um, if they can come to me beforehand, then I help them get their foundation pieces laid. And
Mm.
that helps them with their financials and everything before they go and hunt for their attorney. By
Mm.
then, I usually know what type of attorney they're going to need. Now, I work
Mm.
in the high conflict, so abuse. And
Mm-hmm.
usually, when there's one kind of abuse, there's usually always financial abuse. So,
Yes.
helping them go through that.
Mm-hmm.
So we just kind of start right there. If they come to me in the middle of the divorce, I have to back up just a little bit. I usually have to read emails from attorneys to my clients and try to figure out what's really going on so that I can explain it to my client. And then we start rebuilding a foundation, then rebuilding how they communicate with their attorney as well as their soon to be
Mm-hmm.
ex.
Yeah.
Because that is where the conflict is. We can
Mm-hmm.
cause conflict with our own attorneys just in how we speak to them, or the people that are helping us with our financials, or the people that are helping us find out how much our house and belongings are all worth. So we
Mm-hmm.
want to make sure that we get that communication backed away from any emotion. So I help clean out all that emotion. And then I also obviously will help them, if they're still communicating with their soon to be ex, I help them clean up that emotion and help them set boundaries so that they can get strong in themselves and their choices as they move forward.
Mm-hmm. I find in my experience, and often I've heard from other people also in South Africa, people go the litigation route first of all, and then they get to an alternative option when they are already exhausted and financially drained, and their resources are depleted. Then they start, considering alternative options like mediation or coaching and mentoring. I do mentoring. They don't start out this way. So we have, and in South Africa and many parts of the world, still there's that huge public education to do to make people aware that there are alternatives. What is your experience in your part of the world? Is it a common thing to start off with a divorce coach?
Um, Divorce coaching is becoming more prevalent.
Mm.
Some places here in the US, they're a lot more prevalent. I work all over the world, so I actually have
Yeah.
people in South Africa I'm working with. I have people in Norway right now that I'm working with. So it's about, and you are very right. We head out in the litigation world, and we do not want to head that direction. That is the most costly of any
Yes.
direction you can go. And so if you can handle things on your own, great. If you can't, getting a mediator to help you navigate those communications, and as a restorative family mediator, and I emphasize the word restorative. My job is not just to separate you, pull you apart, and then have you start over. My job is to hopefully pull you apart in two wholes and not two halves. Because
Mm.
if you can learn to communicate, even with an abuser, if you can learn to communicate, then there's less less fuel that you put on top of the fire that causes all of the problems. And if you're going to co-parent, that's huge. You know, you may not be able to co-parent and do the same thing together, but you can learn to co-parent to where they co-parent their way, you parent your way, and the children thrive in their own way between the two of you. We don't want the conflict, and heading towards litigation, all that is conflict, and it
Yeah.
will just hurt you all the way down the road.
Yeah, with no end to it. I love what you said about pulling them apart into two wholes, because I know myself also, there are definitely skills and tools that you can acquire to help you to co-parent better, to help you to separate better. It's just a matter of learning those things, by being made aware of it and getting the right guidance to actually know which way to go with your particular situation. There are ways, of course, in abusive situations, it's more difficult, much more challenging to co-parent. But can you perhaps give us an example of how you help people or teach them to co-parent when there's been a very abusive relationship? And what I want to add to my question also is something interesting that came up in a recent interview that I did with someone. If there's abuse in the intimate partner relationship, how do you know that abuse is not going to be extended to the children? Because that is often the reaction of the victim of the abuse, is to want to protect the children, for the fear of the children being abused as well. I'd love to hear your take on that.
Well, it's very difficult to let go of the fact that you were abused and now your children are going to be with that abuser on their own
Mm,
without you there. That's
mm,
very difficult. And so we start with that documentation conversation. You have to document everything that you possibly can. If your child comes home saying certain things, you want to document that. If they come home with bruises, and I hate to say that would be the case, we never want that. But
mm,
if indeed that is the case, then you need to document that. You need to take that child to doctors. You need to have the doctors document it, because a doctor is one of the people, at least here in the States, um, a doctor is one of those people who can report the
mm.
incident and it be heard. If
Yeah.
you are one of the parents reporting that, a lot of times it can show up that you are trying to keep the child away from the other parent and you look like the bad guy. If
Mm-hmm.
you're the good guy, you want to make sure that you're doing everything right. Make sure that your children get to therapy. Make sure that your children know that you love them and give them a safe place to talk, and
Mm.
do not talk negative about the other parent. I know we want to share our frustration with our kids, but those are super important aspects not to do with your child. The more you do that, the less they're going to trust you. And if they're in a situation that's possibly abusive or could become abusive, they need to know that you are the safe parent.
Yes, very, very important. I'm so glad you mentioned that, because if that trust is broken, then the children are in a really, really difficult spot if there's abuse on the other side. But
Mm-hmm.
not bad mouthing the other parent is probably one of the most difficult things to do.
Yes. I
Mm,
found myself in my divorce 22 years ago. I can't say bad mouthing, but definitely trying to scoot my point of view into my children who were older. My baby was 16 at the time.
mhm,
And I look back over that and I I was not in a good place. And if I had reached out and got help, got support, because I didn't have any family support at that time. They
mhm,
all chose my ex's side, my
mhm.
former husband. And in that aspect, had I reached out for help and support, I would have been in a better place. I would have healed much quicker, because it took me 15 years to get back on my physical and mental feet to be
Mm.
strong enough on my own to be able to handle the world.
Wow. And that sounds familiar. I know myself also. Where am I now? Almost, yeah, 15 odd years past my separation, and there's still challenges. There's still days where it's really difficult, and there's harm that's done and wounds that we carry, and there's never-ending work, it seems, to have to go through to overcome all those things, eh? Yeah, it's hard. You mentioned family, Tina, taking sides, and the same goes for friends. What is your advice on that? Because that always happens, and it's so painful. People that you thought you had a good relationship with suddenly turn their backs or take sides, or sometimes they disappear because they just don't want to be dragged into it. What is your advice to people on that?
Well, first off, you have to give yourself grace and you have to give them grace. With family members, like in my situation, what happens often with those of us who are in an abusive situation, and as I back up to say this, I do not believe my late husband, my former husband was an abuser. It ended up being abusive because of the situation. So it would have gotten worse had I not gotten out. But what happens with us in an abusive situation is that we don't tell our family. We don't talk too much to our friends. We might have one, maybe two close
Yes,
friends that
yeah.
we share some. And when we don't tell people, we almost even boost the other person up. We make them look better than they really are. So when I came out of my relationship, my family believed that I had left him for another man. And it
Oh.
looked like that because I needed a safe place to live. So I went and lived with another man. But
Mm.
the reality of that is I needed a safe place and my family wasn't it because I didn't share that with them.
Mm.
We also tell our friends, and the reason why our friends kind of leave is because they get tired of listening to our same story over and over again. We lean too hard on them. That's where my job comes into play. Is you can lean as hard on me as you want. You can complain as much as you need to complain or as much as what is needed to
Mm.
complained about.
Mm.
And then I get you to stop and we start building the boundaries. We start building our foundation. We start rebuilding the person themselves.
Mm.
So we want to be careful not to share too much. And we definitely don't need to have too much outside influence on our decisions
Yeah, I
because
agree.
our decisions are going to affect us, not them.
Mm. Yeah, I definitely agree on that. One of the things I always tell my clients is stop listening to everybody and sharing everybody with the people close to you. Because as much as they love you and care about you, they can't be objective. As hard as it doesn't matter how hard they try, they can't be objective. So it's important to not take their advice.
Yeah.
Mm.
Especially if they one don't really know enough about divorce, just going through one divorce, maybe two divorces, doesn't make you an expert.
True.
But like the divorce coaches that are trained, one, they're trained in that. And then if we are seasoned enough, we've been through this with many of our clients.
Yeah.
Like I
Mm.
have clients that talk to me about uh, their soon to be ex not turning in their financials and how they can get that done. So that's just one of a large handful of things that I go through with almost every single one of my clients. And
Mm.
so to help them, it's like I've got the training, I've got the knowledge, I've got the ability to
Mm.
roll them through where we as best friends and we as family members, parents or siblings, we can't help like somebody who has the training.
Yeah, definitely. And another thing that I often find is also linked with families is when people go through a divorce, they will often go to the family lawyer or a lawyer that somebody in the family has used or is familiar with, but it's not necessarily somebody who specializes in family law or has experience in divorce, but they go to that person because it's a known person, it's someone they trust because somebody in the family has used them or they've been the family lawyer for years. And that can also be very dangerous.
Yes, definitely. If they're not trained in family law and
Mm.
haven't dealt with family law, they are not the right lawyer for your situation. And I often tell people lawyers are not one size fits all.
Mm.
They need They need to be the right lawyer for your
Yeah.
situation, because even in family law, there's different lawyers.
Mm. Yeah, very true. Something that really gets me, I almost want to say triggered, is when people ask around for a bulldog lawyer, when they're angry at each other and the conflict is high and they just want a bulldog lawyer or somebody, and they actually have no idea how harmful that can be.
Yeah. And there are some cases that the bulldog lawyer is necessary,
Mm.
but a bulldog lawyer is conflictual to begin with.
Yeah.
And we don't want conflict right away. So when we do have to hire, we do have a bulldog lawyer in the arena already,
Mm-hmm.
my job is to take some of their work off their plate and bring it
Mm-hmm.
back to the client. And the client and I start working through that so that we can take some of the fuel away from the fight. We
Mm.
need a bulldog lawyer that understands how to file certain orders to compel the other side to turn in financials and things like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm.
Because I have worked with lawyers who don't even know or are afraid of that.
Really?
I have actually worked with a lawyer who was afraid of the other side suing them. So when you
Goodness.
have
Yeah.
that type of lawyer in a situation that you need a bulldog lawyer, you have the wrong lawyer
Yeah.
there too. So we
Yeah.
have to have the right lawyer. And just like you are saying, the bulldog lawyer is not always the right lawyer and shouldn't be given all of the reins all of the time, only
Mm.
when it's necessary, because they will cost you lots of money
Mm-hmm.
just to do their job. And what comes out in the end, Sunita, is that they end up with the same amount in the settlement that
Mm-hmm.
they would have had they not hired that specific lawyer.
Mm.
It's the same in the end. They're going to lose. And only thing is that when I say lose, they lose the amount of money that's invested in
Yes.
somebody that may not be the right person to
Mm-hmm.
invest in it with.
Mm. And talking about lawyers and litigation, something that I feel very strongly about and I teach my clients is that they must take ownership of the process and manage the process. Often people put all their trust in the lawyer and they end up not making any decisions themselves, and they're led by the lawyer with a litigation view. And it's important that people realize it's their divorce, their lives, their situation, and they have a right to be in control of it, make the decisions, and get to a point where you actually give your lawyer or your mediator or your advocate, whoever it is that you use, instructions, clear instructions that is based on what you have decided, what you have strategized, and instead of just leaving it to somebody who maybe has only the legal background or the legal expertise and doesn't have the all-round experience and understanding of the situation like a coach has. So yeah, that's something that's very, very important.
And I completely agree with you. I
Mm.
have seen way too many people that come to me in the middle of their divorce where everything's now gone sideways. And when you start to question them about what's gone on, that you realize that they gave all of the decisions to their attorney.
Mm.
The decisions that an attorney are going to make are going to be legal decisions, and they are rarely going to be the right decision for
Mhm.
you later in life. They're the right
Yeah.
decision maybe for now,
Mhm.
but they don't have to live 10 years down the road with the decisions that you made today.
Yes.
And once you are done with that divorce, that attorney gets to walk away.
Mm.
You are set there with that life and those decisions for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why you have to make sure that you make the right decisions. Yeah. So, Tina, on a more general note, what are the most common issues, really thorny issues that you come across in divorce situations?
The most common issues is the other side, because I'm usually working with the abused, and
Mm-hmm.
the other side continues to verbally abuse them,
Mm-hmm.
and that causes a lot of pain and hurt So they want to fight back. So that's one of the issues that we deal with. Another one is, just like I had said earlier, getting the other side to turn in all their financials. That's almost every single one of my clients that are divorcing a difficult partner goes through that exact scenario. The other scenario that I see most often when we have kids involved is that parent alienation term that's been thrown around. And that's when the other side is convincing the children or gaslighting the children into believing they're right, and that my client's not giving the money that they need to give, that my clients won't allow their children to go on vacations with the other parent, when those are not the truths. Those are not the situation at hand. So those are some of the ones that I see almost in every single case.
Wow. Alienation is quite common also, and it's rife. I know there are a lot of debates around it, different names for it, and controversy also, because some people in powerful positions have actually gone as far as saying there is no such thing as alienation, you know. So, but yeah, it's something I see every day as well. That is closely linked to the personal growth that a person has to go through in a divorce situation, because you can naively start alienating your children without realizing what you're doing, and it can very easily get out of hand. That's even if you're not an abusive kind of person. It's very easy to fall into that trap, especially when the emotions are high in a divorce situation and parents have the need to maybe be the one that's right, or maybe to be the good party in the situation. Which brings me to parental guidance, which is something that I also recommend very strongly for people with children who get divorced. I believe that your parenting has to change considerably when you go through a separation, and there are important aspects that people need to be made aware of. Do you also pay attention to that?
Yes, and I do my best to help my clients pick up the pieces, because usually in a household there's one parent that was a disciplinary person and the other parent that was the mothering type and always kindly cared for the children. And it could be the father in that case. It doesn't have to just always be the mother. And when I have the client that was not the person that set the rules and made the child follow the rules, we have frank conversations, and I even give them book ideas on things that they can read that can help them set boundaries with their children. One of the most important things is that communicating with the children. You don't tell them what their other parent is doing that's wrong and throw them under the bus. But you can answer questions. If the child asks you about the divorce, you can communicate the answers to them in a way that's best for their age level. You just don't want to throw the other parent under the bus, but you can answer questions. And one of the things that you can also do is question them as if you were a coach. So how did that make you feel? And what do you think you can do about that the next time? How can I help you come up with blah, blah, blah the next time that you have to deal with this? Those are great ways to communicate to your child.
Especially in a divorce situation. Very clever. Yeah. Something else that I also encounter quite often is the stay-at-home parent who's dedicated years or decades to raising children and have not made a financial contribution to the family or the assets, and then they get divorced. And often, very often, sadly so, they are not treated fairly. They are not regarded as a valuable contributor to the family. They walk away from the divorces with far less than a fair settlement. What is your take on that?
Well, it's really, really hard when you are the stay-at-home parent and a divorce happens because the other side is refusing to give you what you need to have to continue to
Mm,
stay being a stay-at-home parent. And
mm,
so the very best that you can do is start looking for those part-time jobs, or there are kinds of food delivery apps and things like that that you can become a part of to make
mm,
ends meet when
mm,
you need that a couple extra $100 at the end of the month. It's difficult for that parent. So once I get a client that is that parent, then we start looking at those scenes right away. And we
mm,
find out if they are refusing to work, then they need to know that they
mm,
are not going to have the same income that they always had.
mm,
And that's a frank conversation that I have to have with some of my
mm,
clients. If they are refusing to get a job and to bring any money into the household because they've never had to, they're going to be in trouble when they come out the other end of the job. And I hate to say that, but that's the truth.
mm. Yeah, they have to make a contribution and or downsize as well. And I find people object to that. So I'm used to this kind of lifestyle. Why should I get along with less? Why should I downscale?
Mm-hmm.
Because the other
Well,
party wants a divorce.
and that lifestyle
Mm,
statement comes from an attorney.
yes.
The attorneys know that the law says that you should have that kind of lifestyle, but it's impossible. There is
Yeah.
absolutely no way that you can take one income, whatever it is, whether it was two
Mm,
people contributing, and now have two households and still live the same kind of lifestyle. It's
mm.
impossible.
You're right. It's a totally unrealistic statement.
Yes, most
Yeah.
definitely unrealistic.
Mm, yeah. So those are hard things to go through, and it's inevitable with any divorce, like you said. You're going to downscale. You're going to have to lower your standards and get through with less than you were used to. That's a fact. Yeah.
Yes, it is a fact. And again, so we're going to back it, well, not so much back it up, but we're going to speed it up. So now you've got divorced. And so this is the one thing that I tell young marrying people. My
Mhm.
my sons got married, and I that piece of advice, especially to the woman, is get a job and
Yeah.
don't be the stay-at-home person, because if something would to happen, and I don't know whether you know this, Anita, but I lost my husband 9 months ago. And so had I not been able to sustain myself, I
Mhm.
would have had to have gotten at least one other job outside, because I I didn't have his income anymore. I didn't have the ability to pay the bills. And
Mm,
so I tell the wife specifically that you don't want to be a stay-at-home person. I mean,
mm,
you can be part-time, but don't
mm.
be that one, because if they were to die, if you would to get a divorce, you need to be able to stand on your own 2 feet and not need them,
Yeah.
or not need another person in your life to tend to you.
Mm, mm. Yeah. Very true, because we all need to be self sufficient, independent to as much a degree as possible for our own self-esteem and self-worth. We need to stand on our own feet, even if we are part of a couple or in a family where resources are combined. Very important.
Yes, most
So,
definitely.
Tina, I just want to take a moment and acknowledge your tremendous loss. I am aware of that, and yeah, that must have been a very, very, very difficult thing. You mentioned right in the beginning of our interview that this was the man of your dreams.
He sure was. And
Yeah.
that is another side, is that after divorce, you can find the magical person. You can find
Mhm.
Mr. or Miss Right.
Mhm.
It's just a matter of taking care of yourself and healing yourself before you
Mm.
go out and hunt.
Yeah, I like that word, hunt. You go and choose. Yeah. Do you work mostly with only one side in a divorce, or do you sometimes work with both parties?
I have worked with both parties because I'm a restorative family mediator and facilitator, so I can facilitate not just the husband and wife, husband, whatever. I can bring in the family and what we call a circle communication.
Yes.
So I can help both people if they're wanting to work through that or wanting to separate or wanting to stay together. I can help them with all aspects of that side. But the majority of my work is done one-on-one.
Mm. That is quite fascinating. Can you tell us a little bit about how it works when you bring everybody together in a circle?
So we'll take it into an Indian talking stick circle. That's kind of the way that I
Okay.
am trained. It's a restorative aspect where
Mhm.
everybody gets to answer the question or have their 2 cents,
Mhm.
and nobody else can talk over them during that
Yes.
time, including the facilitator. So
Mm.
a question that comes about that is necessary to bring either a couple or a whole family together as a whole, we ask everybody, including children, and sometimes the grandparents can be involved. It just depends on the two people that come to me first. We just
Mm.
kind of communicate out and communicate around.
Mm. That's wonderful. I also do something similar when there's work for a whole family to do, and I involve a bit of family constellation work and family systems and things, and sit in a circle. So also things that I've learned how to do now. The talking stick, we use a stone, is very, very effective because everybody gets a chance to really express themselves, take their time to do it without interruptions, and everybody gets a turn. Hey,
Yes,
yeah.
most definitely. It helps when you know that nobody can one step over you. So then
Mm.
you feel like you can say what needs to be said. And yes, sometimes what's said is very difficult for somebody in the circle to hear. And that's
Yeah.
where the facilitator needs to come into play. So by the time the stone gets back to you, then you get to put your 2 cents in to comfort and to help them understand why somebody might have those kinds of feelings.
Yeah. Restorative indeed, or has the potential to be. Hey.
Hmm.
And what about people who get divorced with adult children? Do you see that a lot? So they're elderly, what's also called gray divorce sort of situation?
I don't get lucky enough to deal with some of those as often as I would like. I like those, just in general because these two people, they know what they want. They know
Mm-hmm.
what they don't want anymore, and they
Mm-hmm.
know where they're headed. So with the adult children, because I was an adult child in my parents' divorce, I can
Mm-hmm.
tell you that adult children go through the same thing as the other children that of younger ages.
Mm-hmm.
And bringing it back to the restorative circle, it would be really, really good to talk with those adult children. And you don't want to throw the other person under the bus even now, but answer their questions so they can understand what's taking place. Very
Mm-hmm.
important.
And obviously, for adult children, you're going to share more information than you would share with younger children.
Um, it's done age appropriate. So yes,
Yeah.
the older they are, the more you can be specific. One of the things that gets talked about a lot at that point is cheating.
Mm.
And so if the child says, did mom cheat on you? Then you can respond that I believe that they did.
Mm-hmm.
You can't ever say yes for a fact unless it is something that you can prove. So we want
Mm.
to be careful about how we center that person when the bus is close by. We don't want to run over
Yeah.
them with the bus. We want to
Yeah.
make sure that everything that we're saying is factual and truth to our
Mhm.
best ability.
Yeah. So the use of language is also something that you can coach people with quite
Hmm.
effectively. Yeah. So, as a divorce coach in your work, do you deal with people through the divorce process? Do you ever have people come back to you after the divorce with new problems that have arisen or some old issues that haven't been resolved? How far into the future can you actually work with the same people?
I can work with them forever, but
Mm-hmm.
yes, I do have people that have left me and then come back. And most of those are coming back because of issues with the divorce decree that have not been finalized, or
Mm-hmm.
more frequently, it's because of parenting, co-parenting aspects.
Mm-hmm.
They want to change the co-parenting because the children have grown up, or they need to move because of a job, those types of things. So yes, they come back. I have other people that they see the importance of the coaching, so they pay for my services for a year, and
Mm-hmm.
that helps them through their divorce, hopefully, through their divorce and beyond as they start to go through the healing process. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of my clients, because of the way I work, they become friends with me. We then share information together. You know, they want to know how my healing from my loss is going. They care about that as I care about their situation and their healing and where they've moved to or their new job.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. So I can so relate to that because we build such a profound relationship with the people because we walk with them on their journey through very difficult things. It's inevitable that we build a bond, with those people and to carry on with that. I love getting feedback from them years down the line. This has
Mhm.
happened, or this has changed, or they've maybe, like you said, found the person of my dreams or the love of my life, and now they're so happy and all of that. It's wonderful to be to remain a part of their lives and be updated on what's going on. Hey.
Yes, definitely. I love to hear the success stories and where they're at.
Mm,
Um, and it's always the people. It's the people that really listen to the help that I or you give.
mm,
When they listen to us and they do the things that we suggest that they do,
mm,
in the way of the communicator, whatever that looks like, those people are the ones that are going to have the most success as they move forward. I
mm,
have clients that they don't want to hear me when I tell them, if you keep doing this, you're going to lose more parental rights than you're wanting to lose. You are demonstrating that you are taking the child away. When
yeah,
those people don't want to hear that, they think that their way is going to be the way. Those people are the ones that struggle the most as they move forward because they
yeah.
refuse to adapt themselves
Mm,
to a
mhm,
new situation. They want it this way, and that's the only way it's going to be.
mm. And that is also, yeah, I think in the beginning stages true for many people because there's anger and resentment and bitterness, and you need to work through some of the emotional issues to a degree before you're really at a point where you can sit around the table and negotiate practicalities and financials and all sorts of things. Otherwise, you're going to just make emotional decisions
Right.
and, misbehave actually and do things that are detrimental. So it's tough.
Yeah, most definitely. It's just tough because your whole life changes, you know. I just did a post on how our lives change. Our lives, mine is from a loss at this point, but I can remember going through my divorce too. I was living in my home was a beautiful home, brand new. And then I ended up having to move into an apartment house that was
Mm,
old and run down and yucky. And in the case with me now, with the loss of my husband, I left our family home that he and I had built together, literally had reconstructed the whole inside of this home together. And
mhm,
I left that in one state and came 12 hours to another state to be with my youngest son. And
mm,
and I'm in a brand new home that I've had to paint and everything on my own to make it mine. And that's what we need to do is we need to adapt
mm,
ourselves into
mhm,
our new environment, our new life, and make it ours and our dream, what we want it to be.
mm, mm. And the way you said it beautifully illustrates how that can be an exciting adventure as opposed to being something horrible that you have to do. It's all about how you approach it, how you look at it, and how you tackle it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I want to go back and touch a little bit about and dealing with kids, whether it's adult kids or younger children. there is a part where I work in the spiritual realm with my clients because
Mhm.
we get so busy in our head, and law becomes this mandated thing, and life just becomes so difficult for us that our brain is just not functioning at its best. It's not making good decisions. It's not going to work and being at work fully. So when we look at the spiritual side of that, we look at our soul and the soul making its soulful decisions for us to learn and grow through this,
Mhm.
and that our children are also soul, and that they're going to learn and grow through this. But you have to be the water and the fertilizer for that. So your words need to be the fertilizer for their spiritual growth. And we got
Mhm.
to trust that spirit, however we look at spirit,
Mhm.
is in charge, and that there is a better plan ahead.
Yeah, that was beautifully said, and I'm so glad you mentioned that, because we have, as parents, we have to lead the way through this transition. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be deep waters at times, but yeah, from a spiritual point of view is where we're going to hold it together and be guided and supported and carried through the difficult time. Yeah, beautiful.
Mhm.
Mm. So, so important, such an important part of the whole process.
Yes.
Yeah. It's true what you say, that it's the law and the legalities and the practicalities and the financials is overwhelming, because that kind of pushes and pressurizes us day to day. It's a constant thing. And the other thing, we neglect the rest of ourselves, because we do need to rest and recover, and we do need to restore ourselves and learn some life lessons and grow, and so that we can become stronger. It's we do need the holistic approach to it. It's not just a legal issue, it's a family matter, and we're talking about people and children and even grandparents and extended family members. So many people are affected by it. It's not a simple legal transaction.
Yeah. Not at all simple. The word simple can't even go in the sentence with divorce. It's just not simple at all.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So, Tina, if you could give advice to someone or people who are on the verge, they are maybe contemplating divorce or just about to decide, or they've just made up their minds that they want a divorce, what advice would you give them?
Well, I'm not the only divorce coach that's out there, and I would suggest that they seek out a divorce coach. Three probably would be a good number. We usually all offer a point where we will talk with you for free. Our first consultation is for free, and we can explain the way that we work. You can
Mhm.
get to know us. I am a very in your face kind of coach, and I may not be the coach that somebody would need, but I would suggest that they reach out to a certified divorce coach, somebody
Mhm.
who's trained in the complexities of divorce and understands how to help their client as they move forward. That
Mhm.
would be the first thing I would tell them to do, because that's going to save them not just the emotional stress, it's gonna save them thousands of dollars as they
Mhm.
prepare to move forward. And it'll help them find the right attorney for their situation, and to support the attorney in their work as they move forward. And
Mhm.
also, if they need a realtor, or if they need a CDFA, a certified divorce financial analyst, we usually have that list or can
Mhm.
find that list for
Mhm.
people. So that's my suggestion, is that as you move forward, talk to a divorce coach. Talk to
Mhm.
somebody who's certified to help you as you move forward.
Mhm. And look at everything that you need to consider.
Hmm.
Yeah. Last question for you. Have you ever had someone come to you, or a couple come to you planning to divorce, and then they manage to turn things around and reconcile or get back together?
I have only, in all the time that I've practiced, I've only had one.
Hmm.
And they weren't planning to divorce. They were planning to stay together, and their
Hmm.
conflict got pretty bad. And that's when they came to me and we did a circle facilitation and we worked through stuff. And as I know it, they are still together.
Fantastic. So in your opinion, do you think most people who go through the divorce should be getting divorced, or could they maybe have prevented that?
In some cases, I think they can prevent that. I deal with relationship coaches, and I have a couple of really wonderful men that are men's relationship coaches. And I truly believe that if we want to work on our relationship, that we need to go, that's one of the places that we can go. A divorce coach is a good person to talk to get some answers. But going to a relationship coach is a way to help you start to figure things out. If we can fix us, we can usually heal the relationship. But if we can't fix us and we think the other one needs to be fixed, then we're in trouble already.
Yeah, definitely. And we can't fix other people or change them. We can only work on ourselves. And
Just
that's
us.
also an important part of work that we have to do going forward, because if we don't learn those lessons and work on ourselves, we're going to repeat it in the next relationship or in the next
Amen.
marriage. So, and that's probably a big reason why the divorce rate for second and third marriages are so high.
Yes, definitely. And the more marriages you have, the bigger the percent of divorce goes up.
Yeah. Wow. What an interesting conversation. I know you do great work because I'm in the same industry and I do similar stuff than you, Tina. It's so important that people get the right kind of support and guidance when they go through this, because divorce is probably becoming, or if it hasn't already become, one of the most traumatizing experiences for children and for adults alike, because it really has the potential to destroy people. It destroys families. I see it happen so often. So
Mm.
I want to just make a plea or a huge call to action to anybody who's watching this video. Please get the right help. Go to Tina or somebody similar. Come to me. There are people out there who are not just looking at one aspect of your divorce, who can look at the whole picture and help you to strategize and position yourself so that you can navigate it with the grace that I mentioned right at the beginning, and your dignity intact, and that everybody can walk away from it whole.
Yes. And walking away whole is the key point. The logo behind me is my show.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about abuse and divorce a lot on the show. And I
Mm-hmm.
can tell, kind of supporting what Sunita just said, that you want to go. And she herself works anywhere, anywhere we can get a Zoom or a phone call. We can work with anybody. And so having one or the other of us and communicating, coming to us and asking your questions
Mm-hmm.
can help you make decisions in your next step. And that's huge and very important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, fantastic. Very well said. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, your personal experience. You've been through a lot yourself, and thank you for bringing it to this platform. I'm
Thank you
very
for
grateful
having
for
me.
your contribution.
Thank you. Thank you.